All right, here we go. We are back and better than ever. It's off-season time.
Off.
We are in off-season mode, and I hate the fact that that's the truth because it's a little early for my liking, but there's a lot to talk about. I'm Andrew Kula. That's Anthony Meglin over there. Listen, before we go anywhere, and I told you I was going to throw you a curveball. This is not the curveball, okay?
Oh,
I just want you to know. But on Monday, I watched the Indiana Hoosiers win a college football national championship. And I know you were watching that game. I mean, it feels like we're just through the looking glass now, man. It's insane.
Hoosiers! That was so sick, dude. That was unbelievable. What an unbelievable story for college football.
Yeah.
Everything, start to finish, top to bottom. I cover Ohio State for our Roundtable Network, so I fancy myself as kind of a bucknut in that sense. And you can't help but appreciate how cool it is that the worst team in college football ever turned out to be a 16-0 national champion with all the right storylines. It was so awesome, Andrew. It was so good.
Incredible. I mean, that, and this is a Packers podcast, but whatever. The touchdown that Mendoza had at the end of the fourth quarter, I mean, that's an all-timer. You can put that right up there with any college football play ever.
That play will be on every monologue or whatever when they intro a national championship game for the rest of time. Like that was as good as it could possibly be. I couldn't be. I don't know. If you're not a Fernando Mendoza fan, you gotta go check into a hospital or something because he's everything that's right about sports and college football and just a good kid. And that team, Cignetti's a nut, but he's an unbelievable coach and. All the things, man. All the things just hit you right in the feels. Yeah. And Andrew, that game was actually like a good football game, right?
Yeah, it was.
Indiana's just been kicking everyone's ass up until that championship game. Miami gave them everything they wanted and more, and had a chance to go win it. And Carson Beck did what Carson Beck likes to do, threw a pick at the end. And man, that was an unbelievable football game.
Yep. Well, maybe one day
I just hit your curveball 420 to dead center.
Bro. You did all right. I said, one day we'll do a college football podcast and we can really dig into it because God, I love college football. Okay, you talked about Curt Cignetti. He's an incredible coach. So here's the transition. We're going into coaching. The Green Bay Packers, they have extended head coach Matt LaFleur. We talked a lot about LaFleur in our last podcast, me, you, and Evan, and there was some mixed bag results in terms of how is everybody going to feel. I think I was watching it back, and Evan had basically said, he'd be a little bit disappointed, but he wouldn't be surprised. Yeah. And, throughout the course of the week after that loss against the Bears, it basically took a week for this extension to come out. There was, we heard everything from they're cutting him to they're extending him to they're going to trade him, just all sorts of stuff. But at the end of the day, Packers president Ed Policy decided, I'm guessing he decided, you know what, this coach has taken us to the playoffs in 6 out of 7 seasons. And if we get rid of him, who knows who's on the other end of that. So would love to hear your initial thoughts on the LaFleur extension.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of agree with how Evan assessed it last week, where it's like, they're definitely not a surprise. But you look around the league and for whatever reason this year, Andrew, all these teams are making moves with good coaches. I thought John Harbaugh, whichever Harbaugh, Baltimore Harbaugh is a good coach. He gets fired. Sean McDermott earlier this week, he gets fired from Buffalo. Obviously, Mike Tomlin steps down. Those are 3 really good coaches. And then you're thinking they probably should keep LaFleur because he can win you football games. But I wonder, Andrew, was there some kind of maybe ultimatum set where it's like, hey, you got one more chance, man. We have to go to the NFC Championship game next year or you're getting fired? Because, the truth of the matter is, Andrew, the fans of this Green Bay Packers team, their patience is going to run very thin very quickly. If they get off to an 0-2 start next year, the boos are going to be loud. The fire LaFleurs are going to be loud. And it's like, do they almost create – here's a question for you. Did they almost create a – lame duck scenario where it's like, all right, if it doesn't go well right away and they do slip up against a Browns-like team or they have a bad loss against insert whoever, do those conversations fire back up, no pun intended, and then his job's back on the line?
Yeah. I have two thoughts on that. One, it's not like with players where, the second somebody is given a contract, you know exactly the years and how much money. Coaches, it's a little bit different for some reason. I don't know why we're not all that transparent with coaches, but it is what it is. We don't know how long this extension is, right? We could be talking about, he was 2026 was going to be the final year of his contract. It could just be to 2027. That's an extension technically, right?
Yeah.
With that said, all the scuttlebutt around Green Bay is that not only are the Packers extending LaFleur, but they're extending Brian Gutekunst, who is the general manager of the team. And then there's a gentleman named Russ Ball, who's basically like the vice president of operations type thing, but he does all the money, And so what that tells me is that they are committing to stability more than anything. And that's such a Packers thing to do, right?
Yeah.
We're going to be good. It's kind of like we've talked about it with the Steelers. They're right there. They're always in the playoffs, but Tomlin was never able to get them over the hump. You see right now multiple teams actually that went in opposite directions of the Packers. You mentioned the Bills, the Steelers. Tomlin took himself out, but I bet you he would have been fired.
Yeah.
The Ravens with Harbaugh. I think, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but I think what the Packers are doing is saying, as long as we get into the playoffs, we've got a shot. So that's priority number one, is get in there. And once you're in the dance, anything can happen. Yeah,
and I mean, truth of the matter is they were a crazy Bears comeback away from winning the North, right? And then you got a home play, and then it's a whole different story, right? The Bears felt like they had a horseshoe up their butt all season long, where just week after week after week, they were getting lucky. Whereas on the other side, for the Packers, not that they were getting unlucky, but like the bounces weren't going their way at the end of games, right? Grant Delpit holds on to that interception. They tie the Packer or the Cowboys. They have a couple bad losses, and you're like, look up, and you're like, Caleb Williams keeps playing Superman, and we're slipping up, and now all of a sudden you lose the North because of it. They are like right there, but Andrew, the hard part is like when they open camp next year, they open OTAs or they open fall camp. It has to be something has to be different. You can't just go in and be like, all right, here we go, boys, rah, rah. We're going to do the same thing that we did the last 3 years. And it didn't work then, but it's going to work now. And like that, the messaging internally has to change because, it didn't work this year, but also too, like maybe I'm wrong in everything I just said, because they did have some of the worst injury luck in all of football. And you're like,
what I was just going to ask you, would things be different if the Packers lost the way they lost to the Browns, or excuse me, not the Browns, the Bears, and Micah Parsons was healthy, and Tucker Kraft was healthy, and Devontae Wyatt was healthy? True. Maybe we're looking at a different story. You can make the case that LaFleur was kind of kneecapped in that regard. Also, he's not the one who missed 7 points worth of kicks. He had them in the position to win the game. The players just didn't go out and execute. Interestingly enough, Micah Parsons basically said the same thing earlier this week. He I don't know if you saw this, but he basically talked about effort and how it's ultimately on the players to execute. And it seemed like he was calling out people in regards to effort and conditioning, and specifically on the defense. And I was hot as anybody after that loss to the Bears, and I wanted LaFleur gone. But the more I've thought about it, the injuries, the fact that, you can be the best coach in the world, but if your players can't execute, it is what it is. Lastly, I feel like when, the game happened on a Saturday, that Sunday and Monday, Jordan Love came out and said, I love Matt LaFleur. Micah Parsons, who you just traded 2 first-round picks for, gave millions of dollars to, said he's my guy. I feel like if they didn't come out and do that, maybe it's a different story. But clearly, this whole organization is supportive of this head coach. So why don't we go get him the resources he needs to actually get him over the hump?
Round of applause to you, my friend. You came all the way around. We're not releasing the text messages from that wild card weekend because they are not for public consumption. But
they were ugly.
They're not good. They were not good. There's a lot of fire Matt LaFleur to the sun. But it is like truthful in the fact that maybe as you do talk about it and think about it, like maybe it wasn't so bad, and maybe it actually was more on the impressive side of hey, he was with all of the issues, with all of the problems that the Packers faced this year. They still were in the playoffs, and they still needed a miracle Bears comeback to beat them, to remove them from the playoffs. Which would have set up. Well, they had to go to LA, to play the Rams. But regardless of that, we're not going to play that hypothetical. Maybe it wasn't as bad as we may have thought, and maybe that was the sales point, Andrew. Like, hey, he went into the offices and said, "I'm going to stand on my business that I put out there this year," and it was a pretty damn good year for all intents and purposes.
How many times have you told me this season that you can't live on the ups and downs of week to week, right?
Yeah, it's the NFL, man.
But it feels so much different when it's a playoff game against your biggest rival. You have the game in hand. So maybe we have to give credit to Ed Policy, who's the team president, who made these decisions, for taking the emotions out of it and just looking at it and saying, okay, what's the best direction for this team?
Andrew, it's so easy to be the prisoner of the moment, right? We are every Sunday. We get on, I do a show immediately after every Browns game and after every Buckeye game. And, you get on and it's like, all right, I just watched the worst thing or the best thing in the world. And like, how does this team lose or how does this team win? And it's like, these seasons are so long and the storylines are so vast, and it's ups, it's downs, it's highs and lows, peaks and valleys. And like when you turn around and look at the whole picture, you're like, Packers actually had a really good season for all of the circumstances that they had to endure. Right. Now it's not to say that's acceptable. Things have to change, and losing in the wild card's not going to get it done, and probably can't do that again. But hey, we get our guys back next year. Going to have a little bit better injury luck. Maybe, just maybe, in 365 days, we're getting ready. You and I are talking about getting ready for an NFC Championship game as opposed to talking about coaching changes.
Yeah. It's also worth noting that these contracts these coaches sign, they're not worth the paper they're written on. They're getting paid, but I mean, we've seen you can get fired at any time if you're a head coach. Look, talk about coaching, talk about head coach. Topic number 2, Jeff Hafley, who was the Packers defensive coordinator. He is now the head coach of Miami Dolphins. Go ahead.
Was this a surprise to you?
No, it wasn't. Yeah. And the reason it wasn't is because the Dolphins just took a guy from the Packers front office to be their new GM. So it kind of made sense to, okay, well, I know Jeff, we work together. Let's just bring him on in. I never thought that Hafley was an elite defensive coordinator, and I'd like to hear what you have to say about that. And the reason for that is when Parsons went down, I don't think that Hafley was able to adapt without him.
Yeah.
Let's just talk real quick about him and then maybe him as a head coach.
Yeah. I don't know if I was just under a rock all week or whatnot, but like, I didn't even see that he interviewed for it. And then all of a sudden, bang, it's like in my face, they hired Jeff Hafley. I was like, oh, like, yeah, that seems fine. I think fine was the way that like my response was, because like up and down, right? Like once Micah went down, it was maybe a little bit more down than up, but like ultimately like fine, I guess. And, I think for the sake of Miami, right, they play in the AFC East, right? And they're playing against Buffalo, New England, and New York. And under Mike McDaniel, the whole shtick was that they couldn't go north and win football games. They couldn't go into the cold and win football games. They were not tough enough in adverse situations to go win football games. Where are you going to go to solve that problem? Probably 2 places. The first being Green Bay, Wisconsin. The second being Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That would be the 2 places I'd go. And they go and get the defensive coordinator from the Packers. And it's like, yeah, I think if you're trying to reset the culture down there, probably makes a little bit of sense there to get the D coordinator from Green Bay.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting too how teams kind of flip-flop? They have an offensive coach and then they go to a defensive coach. So you can kind of see it's interesting how that works.
Put yourself, what would you do? Coach or GM Andrew, GM Kula, you're starting a team, or you're taking over a very mid-level team. You're the GM of the Dolphins. Yeah. Do you in your heart of hearts, you go with more of an offensive guy, or do you like a culture building defensive guy, or would you even go like CEO route, John Harbaugh, Vrabel type route, where you just hire a coordinator year after year after year?
I think what we have seen proven in the NFC North, especially, Dan Campbell's a great example of the type of guy you want to turn around a culture. You know, he's that motivator, that CEO type guy. I think that's where you start. Vrabel's a good example. I think of that. That's where I would go. For, you know, to be frank, if I was Miami, I might have looked at Mike McCarthy.
Yeah.
You know, talk about just kind of a tough guy who knows offense, but he's kind of a no nonsense coach. And Hafley, I wonder, you know, that's quite a jump, man, from being the head coach at Boston College to now you're the head coach of the Miami Dolphins. You know, that's I'm interested to see kind of how he can do it. I'd be also interested to see if the Dolphins somehow can finagle Malik Willis down there.
Good point.
Though I think they're on the hook for a lot of money with Tua. So, all right, enough Dolphins. Let's talk Packers. So here's the curveball. Are you ready?
Okay, bring it.
We're gonna play a game, and it's gonna be a blind ranking game. And you're doing the rankings, okay?
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do, there are 7 coaches right now for the new Packers defensive coordinator. 7 coaches. Okay. I'm going to give you their qualifications. I'm not going to tell you who they are.
Okay.
And what I want you to do is rank them 7 to 1. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So we're going to kind of just blow through this quick so you can hear everybody. And then if we need to kind of go back into the details. Coach 1, right now he's a DB's coach. He's a pass game coordinator. Former All-Pro for the Packers, a team member or he's part of the Packers Hall of Fame. He's coached the Chiefs, Cowboys, Bears as a defensive backs coach. Coach 2, pass game coordinator with the Philadelphia Eagles. He's coached with Matt LaFleur before. He is a quality control coach with the Packers. Let's see, Coach 3, coaches under what's his name, Brian Flores in Minnesota. Former LSU defensive coordinator, and he's coached defensive backs in college and the NFL. You following so far?
Yep.
Okay, here's Coach 4. Currently on the Packers staff as a defensive line coach. He's a former NFL defensive coordinator. Coach 5. He is currently the Denver Broncos assistant head coach, pass game coordinator, former NFL safety. This is a Wisconsin kid. He grew up in Wisconsin, played football at Wisconsin. He coached at Wisconsin as a defensive coordinator and interim head coach. 6, former NFL head coach. He led a team to a Super Bowl as a defensive coordinator, but they ended up losing. And then Coach 7, 2-time NFL head coach, a Super Bowl winning DC. He's coached with Matt LaFleur extensively in the past, and he's apparently good friends with LaFleur. So that's 7 coaches.
Okay.
Let's start at where do you want to start? Beginning or 7 or 1?
Okay, so here I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Read me Coach 6 again. Say Coach 6 again.
Coach 6. Let's see. Former NFL head coach. He's led a team to the Super Bowl as a defensive coordinator, but they lost that Super Bowl.
Okay, so that he becomes there. So that's 3. That's 4. This is 5, 6, 7. All right, you ready for my rankings?
All right, let's start at number 7, and I'll tell you who it is.
Number 7, I have coach number 4 at number 7.
1, 2, 3, 4. That is DeMarcus Covington. He is the defensive line coach of the Packers. In 2024, he was the defensive coordinator for the Patriots under Jerod Mayo.
Yeah, that's a good place for him. Number 7 is perfect.
Okay.
No offense, but that's
no offense taken on his behalf.
Ranking 6, I have coach number 5.
5. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is Jim Leonard.
I thought so. The former Wisconsin.
Former NFL safety. He played at Wisconsin. He coached at Wisconsin as a defensive coordinator. I forget which coach was fired, but he took over as interim head coach, and he's now the assistant head coach and pass game coordinator in Denver.
Okay. Denver's defense is stinky, so they just rushed the quarterback very well. All right, number 5, I have coach 2.
2. That is Christian Parker. So he is the pass game coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles. He has already interviewed with the Packers.
Okay.
He was a quality control coach under LaFleur a couple years ago. And interestingly, he interviewed for the defensive coordinator position before Jeff Hafley got it.
Okay, so he might be higher on the Packers list from that historical. All right, number 4, I have Coach 1, the former defensive back.
Al Harris. He was a Hall of Famer for the Packers.
Yep.
He coached DBs for the Chiefs, the Cowboys, most recently the Bears, and he's currently their pass game coordinator.
Okay. He's the Bears pass game coordinator?
Yeah, Bears pass game coordinator.
Okay.
Yep.
They give up a boatload of points. I like him there. They just force a bunch of turnovers.
They force a bunch of turnovers. You get the bonus of stealing somebody from the Bears too in that case.
Yeah, definitely. All right, top 3. Drum roll. All right, number 3 is Coach 6.
That is Jonathan Gannon, who was just fired by the Arizona Cardinals. He was defense coordinator with the Eagles when they lost to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl.
Chiefs. I wouldn't hate that. I wouldn't hate that at all. He's a good coordinator. All right, coach number 2 is Coach 7.
That's Raheem Morris.
Okay.
Raheem Morris just fired by the Atlanta Falcons. He had stints as a head coach with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Falcons, obviously. He was a Super Bowl winning defensive coordinator with the Rams a couple years ago.
Yeah, okay.
Him and LaFleur coached together with the Rams, with Washington, and apparently they're really good buddies.
I definitely wouldn't hate that. And that leaves one guy left. Coach number 3 is my ranking, or is my top guy.
3, interesting. I don't know much about this guy, but his name is Durante Jones. Okay. So he's the Minnesota Vikings pass game coordinator and defensive backs coach. He was a defense coordinator at LSU. And if you look at kind of his resume, he's coached DBs in college and in the NFL all over the place.
I don't like it. I want to take that back. I would flip.
You want to switch it around. Okay.
I would flip. I would put Raheem Morris first.
Okay.
And the reason behind it is I don't know how I got Coach 3 up there. I must have just got excited. But
you heard he coached with Flores, I bet.
Okay. Oh, that's exactly what it was. Yep. I like Brian Flores. That was what it was, because that gets you a little bit of newness to you. But I would say this, like we talked about it on our last couple shows about maybe LaFleur needs a little bit of juice to his with his coordinators, right? A little bit of that veteranness to him, because some of the mistakes he makes, right? We talk about him being frantic. We talk about him, with all that, all of this stuff. Basically, go back and watch our last episode and kind of hear us talk about him, because he could use a little bit of that veteran presence that maybe not so much he was lacking, but it could just continue to get guys in there that have been there, done that, and can be a real asset to him going forward.
Yep. To me, right now, if you're asking me, and I've been stumping for him, Raheem Morris is my number 1.
Yeah.
Listen, I think when you're talking about coordinators, you need to forget about who they were as head coaches. Okay. Yes. He never figured it out as a head coach. That's fine. Whatever, But he's won a Super Bowl as a defensive coordinator. That's a big deal. Mm-hmm. I did a little bit of research on him, because the word on him is that his players love him. His players absolutely love him. They were going crazy in Atlanta trying to get him to stay on, talking about him like he's a mentor. He's a guy that they see as a father figure. Micah Parsons, he talked a lot over the past week, and he basically said the only thing he cares about is he wants a coach that the people around him will run through a wall for him. Mm-hmm. So you put all that together, you consider the fact that even though he had 2 kind of failure stints as a head coach, he still has that head coaching experience. And like you said, you have a guy like that who can be there next to LaFleur. They're friends. They know each other. They've coached together before. I mean, if that's not pick number 1, I don't know what would be.
Yeah, it'd be perfect. And that eliminates any like worry from that side of the football, because then not that you had that with Hafley, but like, hey, just one more thing off of LaFleur's plate, because this is an important year. Like, this last season was a disappointment, and for all the reasons, but this is an important season, and stacking his deck the best that he can will go a long way. And that'd be a good place to start.
The one thing, and we'll get off this, Al Harris keeps coming up in my mind. And now granted, there's some nostalgia, because I watched Al Harris, just body people as a cornerback. Yeah. Do you remember it was in the playoffs, the Packers were playing the Seahawks, and Matt Hasselbeck in overtime said, we're going to take the ball and we're going to score, right?
Yeah, and it cut on the hot mic, yeah.
And that was Al Harris who got that interception for a touchdown. So My worry for me is, am I falling into the nostalgia? But what I like about him is when he coached in Dallas, their defensive backs were pretty darn good, and they have been for a while. And like you said, the Bears, their defensive backs, they're great in terms of going and getting the football, and that's in today's NFL, which is a high-scoring league. Still, that's really what you're looking for in a defense, is just get some turnovers.
Yeah, no doubt. And a lot of those names on that list that you provided were all, not all of them, but a lot of them were like pass game type coordinators, right? Where guys who were, are involved in the passing game and stopping opposing attacks. And that's, whether you like it or not, that's the NFL today, right? We are starting to see a trend more so back to, putting the ball in the hands of a running back and trying to get yards that way. But at the end of the day, chips on the table, balls is going to be in the quarterback's hands. No greater example of that than this weekend and some of those great games.
Yeah.
Bo Nix, Josh Allen, Matt Stafford, Caleb Williams, like all these games, and even Drake May was hooping in New England, even though that game kind of turned into being not so close. But like, you've got to have the ability to stop the pass, and starting there wouldn't be a horrible idea.
Yep. Last thing about the Packers, because we are in off-season mode, Rich Bisaccia is still the special teams coordinator, and that's just driving me crazy, man. Now I will say, before you respond, there is a little bit of an update. Rob Demoski, who is the ESPN Packers reporter, he deep in a story he did, I found a little spot that said LaFleur is currently evaluating his staff now that he has the extension. So if you're out there and listening, you're just as frustrated as me, maybe that's a little bit of hope that because you said things need to change. And if the head coach is going to stay there, we know the defensive coordinator is going to be different, but at that juncture, why not make changes all across the board?
Well, Andrew, that's part of it too, man. We're going to bring you back, but hey, we were unacceptable in several areas this year. One of those was special teams, and you simply can't watch a game and like think, yeah, we're going to run that back. Like, we're going to run that back, and that's going to be good enough to win football. Like, that doesn't exist. That's not a real thing, right? Like, you can't do what you did and expect to win football games, at least in my opinion.
All right, let's go to topics number 4 and 5. We have a habit of putting those two together because we get so long-winded in the beginning.
That's probably my fault. Sorry, buddy.
It's all good. So we're in the off season, and I think because we all love football, we should just talk about the playoffs and talk about what's going on around. I want to hear your take on first McDermott, right? He, I didn't remember how bad the Bills were before he got there until I went back and looked at the numbers and whatnot, and they did not make the playoffs for like freaking 20 years or something before he got there.
17-year drought.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what do you think about them letting him go?
So if you're a nerd, if you're an NFL nerd or a football nerd like me, I spot drop in on several of our NFL shows. So I literally just recorded a Bills show, and this is what we talked about for an hour. So if you're into it, go listen to it over on Bills Roundtable. But it was one of those, Andrew, that I was like, I can't believe they did it, right? We had been talking about it, very similar to how we've been talking about LaFleur, like get rid of him. They're like, hey, if this doesn't go well, the Bills got to get rid of him. And then you wake up on Sunday morning or Monday morning, and you're like, oh my God, they did it. Like they actually did it, because if you look at just regular season Bills, you would say that is the dumbest decision you could ever make. I think their point differential is over 900 points, right? The next closest is 600, which is insane. I think in the last 6 years, there's 70 or so games over 500, like just bonkers, stupid numbers, right? Where it's like, hey, there's so much success, but every single year they just paired that success with Patrick Mahomes. And it's always been Patrick Mahomes. And Mahomes has been their Achilles heel. And, just the same way they had that 4-year span where they had the wide rights and they were in the Super Bowl 4 straight years and they didn't lose. There's that same stretch of Bills football where it's going to be like, all right, we were so good. And then Patrick Mahomes happened. And then this year, and this is a totally unfair way to analyze it for the Bills, but this year was one where you looked at the playoffs and it was like there's 7 good AFC teams, there's 0 great AFC teams, and like had the Bills just had a better team, they could be like walking through this. Instead, they come into that game this past weekend with a bad roster, and then Josh Allen plays like his worst game that he's played to date, and it's like, oh, we're done. And by the way, Sean, you're fired. And it feels, Andrew, like it feels very like uneasy, right? It feels very rocky. Like the waters are choppy right now in Bills land, because it's like they're staring down the barrel of like, we don't have good options at the coaching position, and we just fired a really good coach. But it's hard to argue that firing there. I don't know. It's tough.
Right. Interestingly enough, had the Packers fired LaFleur, I bet you the Bills would have been right on that right there.
We had that exact conversation of like, oh, that would have been the one. And there's a couple, because like Harbaugh accepted the Giants job before the Bills came open. Stefanski's accepted the Atlanta job before that came open. And it's like, I don't know if those two move the needle. For some people, they were like, Stefanski, boom, signed, sealed, delivered. Maybe in my opinion, but like you bring a guy like Harbaugh in there and you bring in like Dable back as the OC, and
that'd be interesting.
And then you feel really good about it. Instead, they're looking at Dable. Here's what they're looking at. They're looking at Dable as the head coach, and you're like, wow, I don't know.
Yeah.
Hey, I don't know, Jim. I don't know.
Oh, Jim. That's funny. That's really good. So speaking of Stefanski, did you see what Baker Mayfield?
No, I didn't see what happened. I didn't see what happened.
I don't know exactly what it is.
I'm kidding. Yes, I saw it.
Okay. Shit.
So
whose side are you on in that one?
Oh, man. This is like, I tweeted like mid 1 arguing with mid 2, because like, I don't know what leg Baker's like still continuing to stand on. Like he was just, it sucks because I was like a big Baker fan, and then like you realize like he's like a 10-year-old, he's like a 13-year-old boy in a 30-year-old body. Like what are we doing here, dude? Like you're upset and you're butthurt about him not texting you after he traded you away. You two clearly didn't get along together.
Right.
You two weren't going to be successful together.
It was so dramatic at the end there with him.
And everyone's like all worked up. Here's where I soured, Andrew, and I don't know if I shared this story on air, but I shared it with you, I think privately. But I went to the Christmas game, Cleveland versus Green Bay in 2021. Rodgers versus Mayfield. It was the best uniform matchup ever. The Browns they're like retro. They had like this retro jersey that they wore. It was sweet. And in Green Bay, it was snowing. And Rodgers went crazy. Him and Devontae Adams went stupid. And Baker threw 4 picks because
I remember that game.
Yeah, he was up playing Call of Duty till 4 a.m. all week long. And people were like tracking his gamer tag. And you're like, man, dude, what the hell? Like, come on. Like you're in the NFL, dude. Like, let's go. Like, let's grow up a little bit. And then he goes and, that was 5 years ago now or whatever. And now he's tweeting about, hey, coach, I can't wait to see you twice a year. And it's like, dude, you just went 7-9 in the worst division in football. Somebody tweeted, "Hey, bro, your last game you lost to Quinn Ewers. You got bigger fish to fry, dude." Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
That's crazy. What did you think about it? Sorry, I just hijacked everything.
I don't know. I really just scared to know what you thought about it.
Andy, can you believe that there was 10 job openings this year? A third of the NFL
insanity. And I guess it kind of makes sense because a lot of these guys have been long tenured head coaches, and they've been around. And eventually you look, when you're with the Steelers and the Ravens and the Bills, and the Packers were in that boat. If you're not getting over the hump, you have to think, well, what do we change? Well, what the heck do we change? And after a while, the only thing you can do is find a different head coach.
And like that goes to the conversation we were just having a little bit ago of like, hey, you go into that locker room on first day of fall camp, and you better have the right messaging, man, because you're going to try to convince a bunch of professionals that you're going to do the same thing again and expect a different result. And that's the definition of insanity, right? Like you can't do that and expect to win. So like, I understand it. It was just, I had the same reaction when Harbaugh got fired. I was like, damn, they actually did it. And then I had the same reaction as McDermott, like, damn, they actually did it. And a couple of those others in there made a lot more sense. But I was like, man, some of these teams are sick of wild cards, sick of divisionals, and they're trying to chase the big one.
Interesting that the Packers decided let's run it back. What, and you know what? As a fan and as we're watching this, we can now at least look and see. Okay, let's see what happens with the Ravens and with the Bills over the next couple of years, because we've chosen two separate paths. So let's see which one was the right path.
Yeah. Hey, on January 22nd, we'll come back to this 35 minutes. We'll timestamp this thing and be like, all right, here we go. This is the evaluation process going forward.
Yep. All right, last, I just want to talk very briefly. So we've got Broncos and Patriots in the AFC Championship game. Jared Stidham is the quarterback. Insane that Bo got hurt at that second to last play, man. Just
you know who I feel like horrible for, like just horrible. Like it takes such a long season, right? And these fans go through ups and downs, hell and high water for their teams, and Broncos fans go and they win a crazy ass game, right? Back and forth, up and down, beat Josh Allen.
Yeah.
And then 10 minutes after it, they're like, yep, QB1, broken ankle. And you're like, what? Like,
yeah.
Wait a
it's
second.
One thing when you see it happen, you know, and then it's the other thing when it just comes through on a text. Like, what is this?
And it's like, wait a second. Are you serious? Like, it felt like both teams lost. Like, both fan bases were pissed after that. Like,
that's a very interesting matchup. I would probably favor the Patriots in that one. I think just because of their quarterback, but Denver still has a great defense.
So I don't know if I shared this with you, but I was in Foxborough this past weekend for that game. One of my best friends that I played football with at John Carroll.
He coaches there, right?
He coaches for the Patriots. Yeah. So we were we got I got the full treatment. I was in the family section, the whole nine.
Wow.
Andrew, I don't know how you feel towards the Patriots. I shared this publicly. I shared it to him when I told him after the game. I was happy for exactly three people in that stadium: my buddy, his mom, and his dad. And the rest of those freaking Boston scumbag people, I was like, you do not deserve this shit. Like, excuse my language. Sorry if your kids are in the car. I want to win, man. I'm looking at their 6 Super Bowl banners. I'm looking at their 4-year rebuild. And I'm like, goodness gracious, there are going to – and we had already known that Knicks had broke his ankle. So we knew that game was basically to go to the Super Bowl. And you're like, they're going to the Super Bowl. They're going back to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, isn't that incredible? Incredible.
Nuts,
Seahawks and Rams, that's going to be one heck of a game. I really like the Rams. And the reason for that, I think still we're in a quarterback league, and I'd prefer Stafford over Darnold any day of the week. And Nakua Adams, he's just got pieces around him. So I could see a Patriots and Rams Super Bowl, which would be an intriguing watch.
It would be an unbelievable watch. Here's who I'm rooting for this weekend. I'm definitely rooting for Seattle in the NFC. And I am rooting again. I'm rooting for my buddy. Hope he could go to the Super Bowl. That'd be sweet. My heart of hearts, I want the Broncos to win. But don't tell him that. But I do think it's going to be Patriots coming out of the AFC. And I agree with you. I was on another show earlier this week talking about this game, and I was like, Seattle's rolling. Then you look back to that Thursday night, just total banger a couple weeks ago. And you're like, the only reason Seattle won was because of a crazy 2-point conversion thing.
It was fluky. It was fluky.
Very fluky. So I could definitely see Rams Patriots, and that would set up for a Super Bowl that I probably don't want to see, but it will be an amazing football game between two great teams.
I'll tell you what, here in St. Louis, where I live, that would be a Super Bowl from hell for these folks, because
it's no good for the Patriots and screw the Rams, right?
Yeah, exactly. And
who's their owner? Les Snead.
It was some I don't remember, Les Snead, I think, or Kroenke.
Kroenke. Yeah, Kroenke. And that's a cuss word in St. Toulouse.
They hate Kroenke, and they also hate the Patriots because of
great
back in the day, and the whole Belichick recording the practice or whatever.
Oh yeah, was that the 2001 Super Bowl?
It was, yeah. Yeah,
that was Brady's first one. Yeah.
Yep, when Vinatieri hit a field goal at the end there.
It was like 10-7 or something like that.
It was, yep.
Yeah.
So that would be apocalyptic for St. Louis, that Super Bowl. So we'll see what happens.
Hope for your sake that doesn't happen, but
Yeah.
I think it's a very good chance that it does.
There is a good chance.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be back next week to talk about it, and I bet you we'll have some more Packers news to talk about. I would imagine we'll have a defense coordinator by then, or at least kind of locked in on somebody, and we'll be able to talk about more coaching vacancies that are filled across the NFL. So interesting time of the year. That's the beauty of the NFL, right? It's a year-long soap opera.
It's reality TV, brother, and it's the best. It's the best because guess what? Once we finish that up, we'll turn our attention to the draft and
mock drafts. Yep,
and then it's on, baby. It is on. It's the show that never stops, man. It's
That's
so
right.
good.
It's beautiful. All right, folks. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you next week.